because probably it's better to just start when we've got a bit more of an audience here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yes. Nobody's in the waiting room.
And I can check in the meantime with Sao.
No, we're live.
Okay, we're live.
Great. Good. Wonderful. Sao, you are from VNU, University of Languages and International Studies. Is that right?
Yes, actually VNU stands for Vietnam National University.
Right, yeah, good. I'm going to say that then. That's better because people won't make much sense of VNU here.
Yeah.
National University. Great, wonderful. And we've got also Thao Nguyen is also in our group now. Are you there? Is that the correct way of pronouncing your name?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah. Good. Okay. Yeah. After the first two presentations, it's going to be a bit easier with the names because they are all Spanish speakers. But at the beginning, we've got this very, very challenging names for us here.
What do you pronounce it correctly?
Okay, I'm sorry, but it's 9:30, so
Right.
maybe we can start.
Maybe we can start. Do we have anybody else in the waiting room?
Nobody
yet.
else.
Okay, good. Yeah, so we're going to introduce ourselves first. Welcome, everyone. My name is Catarina Glass, and together with Natalia Roldan Mora, we will be chairing this first block of sessions. Okay, so we are online with the fan page, right?
Yes.
Yeah, great, fantastic, good. So welcome to our first presentation of the block of concurrent sessions. We also welcome the audience, obviously, that is following us through our fan page. And we would like to ask you, all those who are not presenting right now, to mute your microphones and also turn off the cameras during the presentation, just to make sure that we don't have any connection problems. So we are ready to welcome our first group of presenters. Welcome, Professor Sao Bui, and your team, Thao Nguyen and Quynh Nguyen from Vietnam National University of Languages and International Studies in Vietnam. The title of the presentation is Paper-Based versus Computer-Based VSTEP Listening. And we'd just like to remind you to stick to the 20 minutes. After that, there will be 7 minutes for questions. Thank you very much. Over to you, Sao.
Okay, thank you very much for your introduction. And hello, everyone. We are Sao Bui, Thao Nguyen, and Quynh Nguyen from University of Languages and International Studies, Vietnam National University. And our research topic is paper-based versus computer-based VSTEP listening, test takers, performance, attitudes, and preference. And this is the logo of our test. It is VSTEP. And VSTEP stands for Vietnamese Standardized Test of English Proficiency. And VSTEP 325 is the first ever Vietnamese standardized test of English proficiency, and it targets at CFR level B1 to C1, which corresponds to level 3 to 5 in CFR VN. And we have had the computerized version since 2017, and both the paper-based and computer-based modes are now together available. But recently, there has been a debate over the termination of the paper and pencil mode to opt for the computer-based version. So we think that there should be more research conducted to validate the new version and investigate test takers' opinions on the two test modes. And because of this, this study was conducted to examine the equivalence of the two test modes in terms of test takers' results and attitudes. And within the scope of this study, this conference, only the VSTEP listening comprehension test was investigated. And here are our research questions. To what extent are the results from the paper-based and computer-based VSTEP listening test equivalent? And the second one, what are the test takers' attitudes towards the computer-based VSTEP listening test? And the final question, what are the test takers' test mode preferences? And to answer the questions, we first needed to go through previous work on this topic. And regarding paper-based and computer-based test equivalent, it was documented by APA, the American Psychological Association, that scores from conventional and computer administrations may be considered equivalent when the rank orders of scores of individuals tested in alternative modes closely approximate each other, and B, the mean dispersions and shapes of the score distributions are approximately the same or have been made approximately the same by rescaling the scores from the computer mode. A number of studies were conducted, and our review showed that the number of studies supporting the equivalence between the two testing modes has been dominant. And regarding test takers' opinions about computer-based testing, several studies reported that test takers has positive impressions on the computer-based mode, and they believe the computerized version was also a valid measure of their ability, and their mode preference might depend on their personalities, for example, introvert or extrovert. In Vietnam, there were only 2 studies on this topic. The first one is the project that set the foundation for the development of the computer-based test mode by Quynh Nguyen in 2017. This project revealed a real demand from test takers for the establishment of this new mode of testing, especially for the VSTEP 3 to 5. And the second one is on this year, 2020. Thao Nguyen found that language learners prefer to take listening tests on computers, reading tests on paper, and 50-50 for writing and speaking. And to enrich the literature, more research should be done on this topic, especially when computer-delivered tests are rising in Vietnam, and the development and adjustment are going on, and all the reasons above lead to our current research. To collect data for our research, we recruited 87 students. They were 21.7 years old on average. 90 of them were female, 90% and 10% were male, and 60% were English majors, 40% were non-English major, and on average, they had 7.5 years of learning English, and most of them often use computers at work or in daily life. And regarding the research instrument, we of course use the VSTEP 3 to 5 as the test, and then we also deliver a questionnaire. VSTEP is a test of 4 skills: And about the VSTEP listening, it has 3 parts with 35 MCQ items. And test taker would listen to announcement, conversations, talk, and lecture, and then answer corresponding question. And based on their score on the scale of 10, they will be classified into different levels from B1 to C1, or not rated. And concerning the questionnaire, we had 21 close-ended questions asking for test takers some personal information, their familiarity with computer use, and then the central part is their feedback on the computer-based test and some comparison with the paper-based one. And in particular, our participants took the paper and pencil test first, and after 6 days, they took the computer-based one. This is a test of different test content, and the participants did the test in computer labs with full equipment, customized testing software, computers, headphones, etc. And at the end of the computer-based test, participants were asked to answer a questionnaire, and the data was then collected and analyzed. And corresponding to 3 research questions, here we also have 3 points to present with the result part. That is the test score equivalence, attitude to computer-based test, and test mode preference. So firstly, to obtain the findings regarding test result equivalent, we compare the summary descriptive of test taker score from both tests. This is the table of raw score with 35 as the maximum score. You can see that the descriptive indices of the 2 tests are roughly equal, especially we can see both mean score are around 19, median were 17 and 18, standard deviation around 7.5, and minimum and maximum score were very close between the 2 tests. And besides, the score distribution of the 2 tests also share quite similar pattern. And the same is observed for converted score on the scale of 10. After converting the score, we have 6.4 as the mean score of the paper-based, and 6.3 for the computer-based, which is very close. Both tests have the standard deviation around 2 and standard error approximate 0.2. And the pattern of the score distribution were also quite alike. We could see that the difference between the summary descriptive were very small, but to make sure, we still run a t-test to check if the difference was significant. And the result showed that there were no significant difference between the mean score of the 2 tests. And as pointed previously in the guidelines by APA, besides descriptives, we also need to check the correlation of the 2 score sets when examining their equivalent. And here are the correlation results for both raw score and converted score. The computer-based and paper-based were highly and significantly correlated with each other at 0.88 or 0.89. You can see I highlighted them in red. And we also run the correlation analysis for the score rank order, and the results also show high and significant correlation at 0.87 and 0.88. And when comparing the CFR classification, we can see that about 72% of the test taker remain in the same level across 2 test modes. 18% had higher level with computer-based tests, and around 10% had lower level with the computer-based. And the correlation analysis was also run, and we got acceptable and significant correlation value at 0.78. And that's the result, the findings regarding the test score equivalence. And besides comparing the test result of the two test modes, we also wanted to know the test taker's attitude to the new test mode. And the result showed that in general, the test taker agreed that the computer-based listening tests were able to reflect their English listening ability. And when being asked to giving comments on the technical aspect of the testing system, 80% and more of the participants thought that the system was quite good, the sound quality were good, the interface was user-friendly, and the instruction was clear, easy to understand. And about the listening input feature, almost all of the test takers agree that the accents were clear and the speed rate was appropriate for them. Then we require our participants to compare their experience with their test doing procedures in two test modes. And the findings show that from 70 to 80% of the test takers found it easier for them to listen to the test, to read the question, and select the answer in the computer-based modes. And now finally, we asked the test taker about their preference regarding testing mode. And for listening only, about 70% prefer the computer-based test. This is quite consistent with their positive comments about this test mode presented above. But regarding the full-scale project, we also asked this question for the other 3 skills, because VSTEP is a test of 4 skills in total. So you can see that here we can see a strong preference for computer-based with listening and writing skill, but this is not the case for reading and speaking. If averaging out, if consider 4 skills as a whole, VSTEP test in general, the participants were divided into like roughly equal halves. That is, 56% prefers computer-based and 44% don't prefer computer-based. So what were all the findings telling us? For the first question, to what extent are the results from the paper-based and computer-based VSTEP listening test equivalent? We can see like approximate descriptive indices. We can see high and significant correlation, and this means the two test modes are relatively equivalent, which is in line with the majority of previous research. And this also means the computer-based and traditional modes can be used exchangeably. But for a high-stake test like the VSTEP, we still hope for better equivalence. That is, this means there is still room for improvement, and we will need to do something to bring the two test modes closer, like providing the same equipment in test administration or doing test linking and equating to rescale the score of the two tests. As to the second research question, what are the test taker attitude? We found positive feedback regarding overall impression, technical aspect, and listening input features. And our participants share that they found it easier to do the computer-based test. So this means the test taker feel quite comfortable with the listening computer-based test. And regarding the test taking procedure, they found it easier to listen, probably, we guess, because they could use the headphones, or they found it easier to select the answer probably because they can just click on the option on the screen rather than shading the circles in with a pencil as in the paper-based test. So at this point, we think that paper-based administration might adjust to lessen the gap between the two test modes. For example, we might also provide headphones for the test taker to listening in the paper-based test, like the IELTS, or this may better, or we may have to do some equating in scoring. And this may better facilitate test taker and have the two test versions yield more equivalent results. And about the test taker preference for test mode, test taker, we can see that test taker prefer computer-based for listening, and when for skill were considered, test takers seem to prefer computer-based for listening and writing, and traditional formats for reading and speaking. And if averaging out, we there would be like two roughly equal half, like 56% for computer-based, 44% for people not preferring computer-based. And although the findings are not fully consistent with previous reports, they all imply that preferences are different among test takers. So therefore, both versions should be available to better cater for the demand of two test takers group, which would maximize their performance, and termination of paper-based test mode to opt for the computer ones is not recommended. So basically, our study showed that the results from the two test modes were relatively equivalent. Test taker has positive feedback regarding the new test mode, and for listening, test taker prefer the computer-based, but for the whole test for skill, they were divided into two halves. So it implies that the two test modes can be used interchangeably, but some adjustment in administration and scoring are needed to lessen the gap between the two test modes and to strive for better equivalence. And importantly, both versions should be available as option for test taker. It means permanent elimination of the traditional modes is not advisable. So basically, that's our study, and here is the references. If you have any question, please let us know.
Thank you, Sao Bui. Yes, we have a few minutes for questions now. We can also take questions from the fan page if you write comments on there. So Natalia, can you share questions from the chat, or you can put on your camera and unmute yourselves and ask questions directly, of course.
Sure. Please feel free to ask any questions to the presenter. So far, we don't have any questions in the chat here in Zoom. So Manuel, do we have any questions in the Facebook Live session?
No, we don't have any questions from the live.
Quynh Nguyen says, thank you all for attending our presentation. It was very interesting, very engaging. But don't be shy. Do you have any questions?
Or you can share your experience with this topic.
Right.
Yeah.
Can I please ask a question? Sao Bui, thank you very much for the presentation. I really enjoyed listening to you. I have a simple question. I don't know if it's simple or whatever, basic question maybe. So you have compared two versions of the same listening test.
Right.
One of them being
yeah, the same
COP.
format of listening. format test.
Nice. One of them being a CBT, one of them being a PBT. Now my question is, since you also mentioned that the two tests were different in terms of their content, how did you evaluate the equivalency of the content of the two tests?
First, VSTEP is a standardized test, so we have test specification, and then all the tests have to abide by this specification, and we also have the expert group to compare in terms of like difficulty or just their judgment first, because we haven't delivered both tests, and that's why actually we didn't use the same test because we couldn't. If we use the same, then we use here the same group of test taker, but with different test content. And that's why at the end of my presentation, I mentioned that we may also have to use the linking and equating in scoring and in item. We have to use like common items to really link these two tests.
Thank you.
Thank you, Sao. Thank you for the question also. We don't have any other questions in the chat. Manuel, any questions in the Facebook Live?
No, there are no questions.
So we still have 1 minute for any other questions that the...
Or comments, yeah.
Or comments, yes. Well, apparently we don't have any other comments or questions. So thank you again, Sao Bui, for your presentation, for presenting on behalf of your team. Katarina?
Yes, and we would also like to thank the audience, of course. Thanks very much. Very, very insightful presentation. And our next presentation is insights from extensive listening studies, a review study. So right now, we have 2 minutes, I think. So yes. You can change rooms if you prefer to watch another presentation. Otherwise, you just stay with us, okay? And we are getting ready for the next presentation. Thank you very much.
Stay here.
Yes, actually,
yes,
they're here. Yes.
You're already here. That's great.
I need a minute because there was a problem with the Zoom account. So maybe the meeting will close, but it will open on the same link.
In case something happens, we can come back here.
Crossed,
okay? Fingers crossed.
Yeah.
It didn't close. So good.
Great, fantastic. I'm glad we're not on a plane and you're not the pilot of the plane. Good. Okay. How much time do we have until we present the next Yeah, let's just give everybody time to move from one session to the other. So let's not introduce the next presenters. But we have I have seen Maria also.
Yes, I'm here.
Vahid.
Yeah.
Yes,
great, fantastic. Yeah, everybody's here. So maybe I have time, Vahid, to just write down the correct title of your university, so I can actually mention both. Yeah.
Good idea.
In the chat box.
Yeah, you can write it there.
I can write it down for you, Dr. Vahid.
Oh yeah.
Okay. I will stop sharing the slide for the presentations for today, so you can start sharing your presentation. Okay.
Great.
Yeah. Thank you.
Maya, you can just put it in the first slide.
Okay, there it is.
National Institute of Education, Nanyang Technological University, right? Yeah,
That's right.
good, great.
Yeah,
Great.
yeah.
Right.
Mhm. Okay, 1 minute.
Good.
Mhm.
Yeah. Apparently a few people are joining from another room, so that's great too.
Yeah, welcome aboard.
Yes.
What time is it where you are, Maria?
And Vahid?
It's
I'm
10
in
o'clock.
Indonesia at the moment, yeah. So in Indonesia it's at 9 and in Singapore it's 10 o'clock, right?
Wow.
In the
PM,
evening. So
in the
it's good
evening,
evening
yeah.
for you.
In the evening.
Yeah, and here it's morning.
So, yeah.
So
Good
please
morning to
excuse
you.
us if we fall asleep in the middle of the presentation.
No, please don't. Please
Please
don't.
don't.
Yeah, we're just having
Okay.
our morning coffee to wake up. So
Right. Okay, it's 10 o'clock.
good. Okay, next round. Welcome to our second second presentation of the block of concurrent sessions. My name is Catarina Glass, and together with Natalia Roldan Mora, we will be chairing this session. We would like to ask the audience to turn off your cameras and microphones during the presentation, just to make sure that there are no problems with transmission, okay? Also, for the audience following us in our Facebook Live transmission, please use the comments box there to be, so you can ask questions and interact with us through that tool, okay? So we welcome Professor Maria Hidayati from Universitas Negeri Malang in Indonesia, and she's also an PhD ED student at National Institute of Education in Singapore, and Vahid Aryadoust, Professor Vahid Aryadoust from National Institute of Education in Singapore. The topic of the presentation is Insights from Extensive Listening Studies, a review study. And we'd like to remind you to stick to the 20 minutes, and at the end of the session, there will be time for questions. Thank you. Over to you.
Thank you very much. Hello, everybody. My name is Vahid Aryadoust, and together with Maya, we will be presenting this presentation on the role of listening comprehension, especially extensive listening comprehension in language learning. Well, this is a part of Maya's PhD project, so I am not going to say much really in this presentation. I just wanted to say hello to everybody and introduce the title and pass the time to Maya. During the presentation, I will probably chime in if I feel I have anything to add. Otherwise, I'll just be a listener like everybody else. Over to you, Maya.
Thank you, Dr. Vahid. Welcome everyone for attending this presentation. As has been mentioned by Dr. Vahid, that this is a part of my dissertation project. In presenting, what is it? The title of my presentation, we would like to share these 5 as the outline of our presentation. So we would like to start by giving you a concise introduction of why we are doing this review study, and then we will go to the gap, why we are doing this review study, and it will lead to the purpose of this study. And to achieve the purpose of this study, we would like to share how we are doing this study by sharing and informing the methods and the procedures. And after that, we would like to share the findings and the discussion a little bit about what we have learned from EL studies. And then we would like to end this presentation by wrapping up by proposing some conclusions and recommendations. We would like to start by the introduction, focusing on these three aspects: why listening and changes in listening instructions, and why extensive listening. I think everyone yesterday attended Philip Hubbard keynote speech. In one of his slides, he mentioned about why listening. So I think we agree that listening is the primacy for language learning. Through listening, there are a lot of evidence mentioning that listening helps vocabulary development. And what I would like to add here is related to what Nation and Newton 2008 and Nguyen has mentioned related to why listening. So first of all, listening presents models to be copied. Through listening, spoken text, learners might have some pronunciations, models, how to produce the word sentence models to be imitated, and they can use the models for them in either speaking or in writing. And then Nguyen mentioned that we as learners devote most of our time learning into listening. That's why we have got 2 ears instead of 2 mouths. And then after understanding the importance of listening, particular attention is required in listening instructions. We are aware that listening instructions are mostly conducted in classroom situations. A nice, let's say, an article written by Van der Grief and Koch in 2012, they recorded 5 decades changes in listening instructions happening in the classroom. So based on their observations and summary on what is happening in the classroom, there are 3 changes happening in listening instructions in the classroom. So first of all, it is about text-oriented listening instructions, communication-oriented instructions, and learner-oriented instruction. Those 3 are different in terms of objectives, of course, input types, classroom interaction, learner response, and challenges for the learners. Now let's go to the first one, text-oriented listening instructions. Looking at the names, it means that the activities in listening instruction focuses on how learners are able to decode spoken text, how they can understand the details happening in the listening text. The second changes is on communication-oriented instructions. It means that the activities in the listening classroom focuses on how language can be used to communicate, and most of the time it often neglects the approach on language skills. And the third one, it happens recently. Listening instruction is focused more on learner-oriented instruction. Based on the name, it reflects on how instruction promotes strategies for learners to enhance their listening comprehension and to cope with problems in listening activities. However, it should be noted that listening instructions are not only happening in the classroom. Students or learners can learn language outside the classroom, just like what has been pointed out by Professor Herbert, that there are dichotomous view, formal learning, informal learning, and intentional and I forgot it. So what we are doing now is proposing something that is beyond classrooms. So why we propose extensive listening? Because extensive listening allows learners to receive comprehensible and enjoyable listening input, just like has been proposed by Renandia and Farrell 2011. And it has also some potential benefits related to language learning. With extensive listening is adopted from extensive reading, and extensive reading is, let's say, a more established reading approach compared to EL. And EL has been mentioned as the oral equivalent of ER. Right. From those changes, we also realize that there are considerable amount of research that has been conducted on how EL contributes to the success of language learning, just like has been indicated by some previous research by Chang and many others. However, we have noticed that none has conducted a comprehensive review of the need for implementing EL. Why researchers choose or select EL to improve learners' listening comprehension, and the types of EL modalities and the role of EL in improving second language listening. Dr. Vahid, do you have any addition? Okay, based on that research gap, the purpose of this study is to seek answers on why EL is implemented in language learning and teaching and how it is conducted. And more specifically, we would like to find out the type of problems from the selected studies, because it is a review study in the last 2 decades. And we would like to find out EL modalities selected by the researchers to improve learners' listening competencies. How we are doing that? We would like to discuss the method and procedure of how we are doing and how we can come up with some answers to the research questions. So we consider that this is a scoping review study, and scoping review study is different from meta-analysis, it's different from systematic review, and Dr. Vahid is an expert in scientometrics, so perhaps you can have a look at some of his YouTube video on scientometrics. And this is not a scientometric. We are using ArcSay and O'Malley's framework, where scoping study is to map rapidly the key concepts on a certain research area. So it is guided under certain research questions. And to map that key concepts, we conduct a search of literature from educational databases, and we have access to ProQuest and EBSCOhost by keying in two strings of keywords. So we put extensive listening, extensive viewing, audio support. The first one is focusing on the title, and the second one is focusing on the abstract. And the resulting hits are 205 articles and 189 articles from EBSCOhost and 205 articles from ProQuest. And of course, to answer the questions, to answer the research questions, we are not using those all articles to be analyzed, because we have inclusion and exclusion criteria. There are 5 inclusion and exclusion criteria. The first one, the articles that are analyzed were published in peer-reviewed journals. They were written and published in English, of course, and we select 2020 publication because we would like to find out the latest trends. And of course, the trends will help me to do my lead review for my dissertation project, to know what is happening in the field related to extensive listening. And the articles were research-based evidence, and this research-based evidence consider qualitative and quantitative designs. And the subjects of the articles were those 3. So the articles deal with English as a foreign language, English as a second language, and second language learning. After we apply those inclusion and exclusion criteria, we code them. We code those articles into 2 things. So based on the research questions. So we would like to find out the learner's problems, the learning environment, and the listening activities that require the researchers select extensive listening. And then EL modalities, there are 3 themes emerge from the selected 30 articles: task approach, link skills approach, and viewing approach. Dr. Vahid, do you want to jump in?
No, thanks. You're doing pretty well. Just go ahead, please.
All right. And then findings and discussion. After those methods and procedures, there are 4 things that we would like to share related to findings and discussion. Some definitions, article distributions, how this distribution are categorized, and concise discussion on what is happening based on the findings. So we would like to give the definitions of learners' problems and EL modalities. The first one is related to learning environment. So the meaning of learning environment means that the articles or the studies discuss the learner's physical surroundings. So what is happening around the learning environment that make the researchers select extensive listening. And then listening activities, it deals with a variety of exercises and practices to build and develop listening competencies. And then EL modalities, as there are 3 types: task approach, it deals with how EL is integrated with other activities in listening instructions. And link skills approach, it is an approach proposed by Nation and Newton in 2008. It is an approach where EL is implemented by linking the skills with another language skill. So how listening skill is linked with reading, writing, or even speaking. And then viewing approach, it is related to the implementation of EL where they have exposures from audio visual materials. So these learners' problems and EL modalities, and also the aspects and the types are the themes emerge from the 30 selected articles. So here are the article distributions. So in the last 2 decades, it can be seen that the earliest publication was in 2002. And in the first decade, it's not so well published, but in the last second decade, or in 2010 up to 2020, we can see that EL has gained more attention from researchers to solve the problems in listening proficiency. So here we can see that EL has, experienced new trends to help develop learners' listening competencies. And these are the article distributions. So the distributions are managed into 2, based on studies designs and based on effect sizes. Based on studies design, non-experimental here means it deals with qualitative design. Qualitative design here deals with how the researcher conduct the studies using case studies, using observational, using, but I hardly find EL studies done in using ethnographic or narrative things. So far it's about case study and observational studies. An experimental study, it deals with studies where the researchers conduct experimental using experiment and control groups, using experimental without control group, using pre and post design, and mixed methods are the combination of those quantity and qualitative design. And we can see from the percentages that experimental design have a bigger percentage, and it dominates the studies selected. And based on effect sizes, these effect sizes are taken from experimental designs, and from 67%, there are 12% studies did not report the effect sizes. It means that I cannot find quantitative data where I can count the effect sizes of extensive listening to learners' achievement. And from 88%, the range of effect sizes reported is from small to large effect sizes. So it's from 0.2 to 1.78, and from this 88%, the average effect size is considered as large because it's 0.72.
Yes, it's a very interesting finding, Maria. I just wanted to add that in this, in these figures that you are presenting, the Cohen's D ranges from 0.2 to 1.78. As you said, there's a huge variance here, which is from the very small to very, very large. But for example, a Cohen's D of 1.78 means that there is a 1.78 standard deviation, if you take standard deviation as a unit of change from time 1 to time 2. Of course, we have not yet done a meta-analysis on the results. I'm hoping that after this presentation in the following days, Maya and I will find some time to sit down and talk about how to do a meta-analysis to find out ultimately what is the effect of the quantitative, in the quantitative sense, what's the effect of extensive listening on language learning. Over to you, Maya.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Vahid. And those distributions are categorized into these. As you can see, there are some overlap between one aspect to another types, and the types of problem have around 46% compared to studies conducted dealing with learning environment, while types of EL modalities, they are equally distributed. I mean, task approach has around 26%, and link skills and also viewing approach. We realize that 30 studies are quite minimum, but that indicates EL because it's the sister of ER, or is the oral equivalent of ER. ER has certain position, or it has already been well established compared to EL. So if you would like to see the Dr. Vahid's latest scientometric paper, the findings also indicate that studies on listening is not so well studied. And even from what I've heard from Vandergrift, it's even considered as the Cinderella skill because less attention is given to listening activities or listening instructions, especially in extensive listening. And this part is more on the concise discussion on what is happening based on the findings. Dealing with learning environment, as has been mentioned in the definition, that EL is utilized to address problems related to the learning environment, providing language input. So research-based studies have been conducted that EL is selected to overcome listening problems in an input deficit environment. So at the moment, there are free online resources where students can easily assess listening materials. And based on these studies, EL has been conducted in countries such as Saudi Arabia, where English is considered as a foreign language, in Spain, in Iran, and in Japan. And related to listening activities, EL is presented to provide a variety of exercises because it goes back to the changes in listening instruction happening in the classroom. EL provides a variety to learners where they can practice and learn listening and language from any activities that they can easily access either online or either provided by the teacher through reading while listening activities or extended listening focus activities, just like those previous studies. And related to modalities, TAS approach, it deals with how EL is designed to develop learners' listening competence for real-life communication. So meaning that this type of study design listening instructions to encourage learners to develop their listening proficiency. An example of this activity is done by Zuniga and Gutierrez. So the learners listen to the spoken text, and then the students need to provide responses, just like what is happening in our real life, that when we listen, sometimes we need to respond sometimes. So the activities in TAS approach deals with how learners are able to conduct their real life communication. And linked skills approach, it deals with how listening activities are linked to other language skills. And most of this study deal with how listening skills are linked with reading skills as the input models to learn the language. So I at the moment, I hardly find studies dealing or linking EL with writing skills or speaking skills. And but I have often find extensive reading. Extensive reading is linked with developing learners' writing skills. So probably that will be a kind of new area or something that PhD students or master students can go deep and do some research about it. And then viewing approach, it has been mentioned that it deals with watching and viewing audio visual materials, and the many studies indicate that by viewing activities from the use of audio visual, learners have improved their English proficiency, and these audio visual materials can be accessed via videos, movies, or even applications just like Netflix or any other audio visual materials available. And
so if I may add a point here,
yeah.
Maya, it might be interesting for people who are listening to us now to know that what these three approaches are telling us is that there is a kind of emerging trend in the field of listening research and especially listening for learning that stresses the importance of multidimensionality in listening. On the one hand, the combination of listening with viewing and perhaps other skills that are closely related to listening, like reading itself, or even oral activities like speaking or oral presentations, have been stressed. And I would also like to add that the importance of task approach or task-based approaches, the central role of authenticity, because we want to engage students in some activities that are authentic in the real world situation, rather than some activities that are only good for the classroom and they will have no out of the classroom usages. So together, the idea of multidimensionality and authenticity are, I think, two of the takeaways from this presentation. Thank you.
To add another takeaway from Dr. Vahid, I would like to conclude this presentation that actually EL approach based on the current trend in the last 2 decades. This approach is selected because it can provide rich and abundant spoken input for learners so that learners can use it as models to assist their language learning and acquisition. And talking about acquisition, of course, everyone here knows about questions. So not only from reading, but also from what learners listen, they are, they are able to learn and understand the message for language learning and acquisition. And then the types of EL modalities synthesized from the 30 selected articles, those modalities are actually to address the problems related to the input deficit environment, and then they can devise or design the types of listening activities to help the learners. And like without any doubt, we can say that the quantitative studies and qualitative studies have shown positive evidence, even though there is a small size from one study, but there are some, questioning on the way the researcher conduct the studies. And of course, we would like to close this presentation by giving a recommendation that it is very possible that further research can be done on how EL is implemented for younger learners and how EL can support the improvement of other language skills, such as how it can help learners
Maya, we have run
reading
out of time
skill,
almost.
speaking, and writing.
We only have 1 minute. Let's wrap it up.
Yeah, it only has one. Yeah, this is list of references.
Okay.
Apart from the 30 selected studies. Danke, thank you, gracias.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Maria and Vahid. Very, very interesting and enlightening presentation. Unfortunately, we don't have much time for questions now. I think you have basically, while I was listening to you, you basically answered all the questions that kind of turned up in my mind. I don't know if maybe we can have one little question before we move on. Natalia, can we allow for that?
I don't know. I mean, we don't have any questions in the chat, but we are just in time for the next presentation. I'm really, really sorry, but maybe if some questions arise later, the presenters can leave their emails so they can get in touch.
Could you write your emails on the chat? That would be great.
Wonderful, thank you.
If you would like to. Thank you for your presentation.
Maybe they can leave their question as a comment on the Facebook Live.
That's also
that's another possibility. Great.
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Possible.
Thank you very much again.
Thank you so much for this very enlightening presentation. And we are going to move on now to the next presentation. So welcome to the third presentation of this session, a set of concurrent sessions. Let me just quickly introduce myself. I'm Katarina Glass, and I am co-chairing this session together with Natalia Roldan. And just to remind you that while we are having the presentation, everybody else should please turn off the microphones and cameras just to make sure that the transmission is going smoothly. If you follow us in Facebook Live, do not forget to leave your comments there so we can interact with you there, okay? And we are ready to welcome, first of all, Professor Moisés Alcantara. Can you just make a sign? Yes. And Iván Aguilar from Asociación Cultural Peruano Norteamericano Región, Centro, Peru. And your presentation is about implementing metacognitive processes to enhance listening skills at a binational center in Peru. Over to you. Thank you very much.
Good morning. Thank you for the warm welcome.
Moisés and Ivan, do you have a presentation to share? So you can,
sure.
You should be able to share your screen here.
Okay, can you say it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, so good morning again from Peru. Thank you for joining us this morning for this research presentation. The presentation is titled Implementing Metacognitive Processes to Enhance Listening Skills at a Binational Center in Peru. The presentation is by Moisés Alcantara, that's me, and Iván Aguilar. So let me please tell you briefly about this research presentation. It analyzes students' performance in listening comprehension after the implementation of metacognitive processes. According to Vandegrift and Gogh, when listeners exercise metacognitive awareness and knowledge about L2 listening, they are better able to orchestrate the cognitive processes more efficiently and effectively. For this research, we selected 2 teachers with the same experience and teaching background, teaching 2 different groups of students. These 2 groups of students are going toward B1 level in the Common European Framework of Reference. The experimental group experienced the metacognitive processes, while the control group, as you may know, did not experience that. So metacognitive processes included planning, predicting, monitoring, evaluating outcomes, problem solving, and goal setting. We use that listening section of the TOEFL ITP test for our pre-test and for our post-test. So we were expecting that the students who experience the metacognitive processes would be outperforming the control group. Context and justification. Let me tell you a little bit about our English Language Center. We are a binational center in Peru with a population of about 4,500 students with monthly enrollments. We operate in 4 different regions in Peru, and we have a faculty of about 100 teachers. Listening is an important skill because it enables learners to receive and interact with language input and facilitates the emergence of other language skills, such as speaking. In our EFL context, it is more challenging to encounter relevant opportunities to develop listening skills. So the need for effective development of this skill in the classroom is a must. And as I said before, when listeners exercise metacognitive awareness and knowledge about L2 listening, they are in a better position to orchestrate the cognitive processes more efficiently and effectively. And this is according to Vandegrift and Gogh. Our research question is the following: does implementing metacognitive processes in teaching listening lead to improved listening performance? And therefore, the objective is to determine the effectiveness of using metacognition processes in the development of listening comprehension. Let me share with you 3 important ideas that I will briefly explain because I think they're important in this research presentation. Number 1, metacognition. Metacognition is thinking about one's thinking, is the ability of the learners to control their thoughts, to manage their learning. And it seems that in listening, this is more important than with other skills. We have, number 2, we have reviewed research regarding the incorporation of metacognition in listening, and we have seen that in different settings, contexts, and even age groups, the results are always the same. Incorporating metacognition results in improved performance in listening. And number 3, the metacognitive processes that we have included are planning, monitoring, evaluation, problem solving, as we will see now. So what comes next is the framework that we have used for this research. So this framework has been used by the teacher with the experimental group. This is a metacognitive pedagogical sequence proposed by Van der Grift. So we borrowed the idea from them, and this is a 5-stage framework. And as you can see on top, we have the metacognitive processes like planning, monitoring, problem solving, planning again. Okay, so this is a 5-stage framework. So in regards to planning, if you see at the bottom, you have planning and predicting, and this is what happened in the classroom, meaning that the teacher at this point introduced the situation for the listening activity, and then the students had at that moment to do 2 things. Okay, so predict what you think this is going to be about and write it down. So students were doing 2 things. Okay, they were predicting, but they were also planning what to listen for. And then the audio was played a first time. So there's stage 2, stage 3, stage 4, and stage 5. So for example, in stage 5, where we have the metacognitive processes, evaluation and planning, in the classroom, the teacher used this for reflection and goal setting. So it was about how well did I do on this activity? That, there was the question for the learners. And the planning was more, what can I do next? What can I do in the future if I want to keep improving this skill? So having said this, I'm going to now turn it over to my colleague, Iván Aguilar. Iván, welcome.
Thank you. Good morning and well greetings from Peru, everybody. And so to collect the information in this research, we have chosen to use a quantitative and quasi-experimental research type. This is done by convenience because we have selected a group in our program. It is named the Intermediate 10, okay? So we have basic, intermediate, and advanced. Each level is it has 12 months of study. So this is the Intermediate 10. We are using, or we chose this group because they are about to reach the B2 level in the Common European Framework. And well, there were the students available, okay, due to the conditions we are living. So it was done by convenience. We selected this group by convenience, which makes it, quasi-experimental. It's not really a complete experiment what we have worked on. Then we have the research design, okay? In this design, we have O1, which means the observation 1. The X represents the intervention, the experiment. The O2 is the observation number 2. So this first upper part refers to the experimental group. And under it, we have observation 3, which means the pre-test, and observation 4, the post-test in the case of the control group. And then we had to compare the results between these 2 groups. We define the variables as independent variable, the metacognitive processes as they were implemented by the teacher in the experimental group, and the dependent as the listening comprehension performance. As Moisés has already mentioned, we have used the listening session of the TOEFL ITP for getting the information. Our sample is made up of a total of 15 students, 7 in the control group and 8 students in the experimental group. This research was carried out on April 2021. Can we pass to the next slide, please? So here are the results. In table number 1, we have the results for the pre-test and the post-test. It's important to consider that the maximum possible in the test is the 50 points. So here we have the control group. in table number 2, we have the results for the experimental group for both, no, pre-test and post-test. Again, the experimental group is the one, as we know, which has received the treatment, no? In this case, the implementation of the metacognitive processes. Can we continue, please? Well, now, here we are comparing the results from the pre-test to the post-test in the control group. And we are doing it just using the gain. That means the difference in percentages of between the post-test and the pre-test. Now, it's important to notice that in these results, this is the control group, the changes have been very little or even negative in 2 cases, no? Which means that when students took the pre-test, they had certain grades, and then when they took the post-test, well, some of them even decreased. This is the group that is not using the metacognitive processes. Although there are also some cases in which grades have become higher, in general, we can say that the results in the control group are just stable or even negative. The next slide, please. Okay, and these are the results for the experimental group in table number 4. Here, we have worked the same process. So what we observe in the section that says gain is the difference between the improvement in percentages for the post-test and the pre-test. So at first glance, we can notice that all of the gains are positive, okay? And in general, we can say that the students have increased their results. This is the group, the experimental group, in which the metacognitive strategies were implemented. Okay, so here we have it. Then, well, I'm sorry, this is a little blurry, but we wanted to be a bit more strict with this, so we took our results and made the analysis to see, using the t-test, we wanted to see if the differences that we have observed in percentages in the gains in the previous slides were really important, significant. Then what we have seen is that our null hypothesis says that, well, there is no difference between the 2 groups when they were compared. And the alternative hypothesis says that there was a difference and that our experimental group was getting better results. Statistically speaking, we cannot make that generalization, okay? So here the results, this point, especially 0.3447, shows that still, even though we have seen that there is an improvement in the experimental group, still we cannot affirm, statistically speaking, that this is really significant. So there might be some reasons. Probably one of them is that the implementation of the metacognitive processes wasn't just for 1 month. So students are just becoming familiar with this. And that's what we can see here in our limitations. Well, this research was conducted in just a month with few opportunities for students to practice metacognition more often. We also know that in order for students to benefit from these metacognitive processes, they need to get a lot of practice until these metacognitive processes become skills. No? So the more I practice my strategies, the more I practice my metacognition, they become my skills, which means that next time I'm gonna interact with some listening, I'm gonna be ready, and probably that's gonna be done more automatically. Then the implementation of metacognitive strategies or processes was restricted due to time constraints, as participating teachers needed to complete other activities in the language course. Now, still, the teacher, it's just one teacher, he has to deal with the rest of the program. So this might complicate a little bit more effective implementation of the metacognitive process. Again, the sample was selected by convenience, so further research is needed in order to make more valid generalizations, probably bigger groups and more time. When analyzing these statistics, we know that the sample size is probably one of the reasons why we have not gotten more significant information. So larger samples should be researched and to confirm or disconfirm the results. Okay, well, by theory, we know that metacognitive process should improve our students' abilities to deal with listening. Can we move, please? And some of our conclusions. The implementation of metacognitive processes has, on average, a gain of 8% in the experimental group compared to the 4% in the control group. So both groups have increased, but we can see that 8% is almost double, no? The 4% in the control group. In general, the implementation of metacognitive processes has strengthened the development of listening skills on individuals from the control group and experimental groups, no? All individuals in the experimental group, 100%, and this is a fact, have shown positive gains in the listening post-test, while the control group shows 0 or negative gains in 40% of the participants. So definitely we can say there is some gain, okay? If we take this research as an exploratory, then we would say definitely there is much more to see here. Although the post-test results in the experimental group show a positive tendency, and that's why we manage this statistical process. The statistical analysis shows us that this tendency is still not significant, so further research is needed. Okay, can we move? A couple of recommendations after this experience working on the metacognitive processes. Definitely, future research on the effects of more frequent and extended use of metacognitive process for listening comprehension is recommended. And the research on the impact of each metacognitive process on the development of listening. So as Moisés mentioned, we have used like a sequence of the different metacognitive processes, such as planning, predicting, monitoring, evaluating, reflection. But then the question comes, okay, and it is, which one of them has which effects? So which one contributes better or in what ways to students' development of listening comprehension? Was it the planning? Was it making the prediction, the monitoring, or evaluation? So that has opened a set of questions that we need to continue exploring and working on more research in this case. Okay, can we move to the next slide? Well, and basically that was our presentation. We have tried to be very, very brief. Thank you for your attention. Is there any question maybe we could help with?
Thank you very much. Very interesting presentation. And we do have time for questions. You can either just unmute yourselves, hopefully also turn on the camera to ask your questions directly, or otherwise interact through the chat, or also the chat on the Facebook Live. Okay, so we will pay attention to all those so you can interact with the presenter.
Thank you, Moisés and Ivan, for your presentation. It was very engaging. Manuel, do we have any questions in the Facebook Live session? Manuel, are you there?
Yes, I was checking, but we don't have any questions in the live.
Okay, but in the chat here on Facebook, we have the following comment from Marco. Thank you for the presentation. Could you elaborate on the proficiency of the participants? Do you think that less skilled learners will struggle with a metacognitive approach? In what ways?
So thank you for the question. So maybe I can go first, and then maybe Ivan, you can say something else about that. So these students, and I want to clarify that, these are students moving from A2 to B1. So that's, you know, so that is clear, you know, to everybody. So Ivan is from A2 toward B1. Now, and these are, for the most part, people aged 16 to 20 years old. Okay, so that's the group. That's more or less, you know, the age group. And we don't know if it would be more difficult to incorporate metacognition with younger learners, but in one research we read, okay, which was conducted with young learners, okay, yes, ages 6 to 10, okay, yes, metacognition was incorporated, okay, yes, and it brought about positive results, okay, so performance in listening improved. So that's what I can say about that. So I don't know, Ivan, if you can say something else about this.
Well, yeah, in terms of time, these students have been almost 2 years studying English with us. As any other language program, the program has all the skills to develop, like speaking, writing, listening, reading. They are not very familiar with metacognitive strategies. The book itself, our course book, doesn't really deal with this. And if it does it, it makes it in a very implicit way. Okay, so we are trying to make it more explicit. I mean, our book also says, no, you should make some predictions here and there, but it doesn't make it implicit. So probably that is one of the reasons we want to implement these strategies. About less skilled learners, well, we know that this is using metacognitive processes will really help students, especially the ones who are struggling. Actually, that was the reason. These strategies were created for students who are struggling, because when being conscious on the way I learn or what strategies, techniques, actions that I use are going to be more beneficial for me, then I select them. Now, well, that's what I could say to make it more explicit. Now, the other question that comes is, in terms of listening, we know that the affective factors are also important. I mean, students get nervous, and if they get nervous, their ability to listen is decreased. So probably next implementation, other areas to research are affective strategies. Okay, how do I talk to myself? Okay, they say, hey, I can do it. If I try harder, I can do it with listening. So as I said, it's kind of an exploration, and it's bringing a lot of questions, and that's what I could say to the second. Yeah, definitely it would help, especially if we use more affective strategies together, no, with metacognitive strategies.
Thanks, Ivan and Moisés. Tanya has a question. Or a comment, maybe.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, hello, and thank you, Moisés and Ivan, for this wonderful presentation. I'm very much interested in the topic of metacognition. I've actually worked with it, and I also try to implement it in my classes. So I think that what you've said today is really important to keep developing learners' perceptive skills, and in a way, I think that well, my comment goes on that direction. I think that implementing metacognitive strategies is something that can be done in different ways depending on the learner's level, as you said. So if you want, or if you have, A1 learners, there is a chance to implement metacognitive strategies even in Spanish, or if you find it too difficult to implement them in English. But then you can also use some, I don't know if you agree with me, but you could also use some of the can-do statements that are set as part of the Common European Framework, and then you can see that students can even think of the ways they've been learning the language, and then go deeper into those, but as a first approach, let's say. I don't know if you agree with me or you disagree. Thank you.
Thank you, Tanya, for your comments again. Yes, absolutely. I think you've shared great ideas. And yeah, to be honest, okay, yes, I had not thought about the L1 as the means to, incorporate metacognition, but it makes a lot of sense. Okay, so yeah, it definitely makes a lot of sense. Sure. And the other reason why we decided to start research in this respect, okay, listening and not reading and not speaking or writing, is because and maybe you will agree with us, okay, yes, that listening is usually the skill that is left for students to pick up, right? There's usually no structured way to teach reading, to teach listening, as there are so many ways to teach speaking or writing or speaking. So thank you for your suggestions, Ivan. I don't know if you want to say something else?
Well, yeah, I agree too. I think as teachers, we need to find the ways on how to implement these strategies so that they are more accessible for low-level students, even for children. No, I mean, there might be strategies like I don't know, just asking them, no, through survey or something, to say how hard, how easy they found certain listening and what they can do. So, well, that's the challenge now, how we can really make this more suitable for our program and make it more productive for our students.
Great, thank you. Yeah, we have another comment here from Marco saying, thank you. I think the number of participants may have prevented results from being more significant. And he agrees with Tanya, reflective processes are part of the metacognitive pedagogical cycle approach. Thanks for asking questions, making comments, and interacting with us here. Do we have any other questions on the Facebook Live, Manuel?
No, there are no questions.
Okay, good. And we are actually just on time to start with the next presentation. So we would like to thank Moisés and Ivan for a very insightful presentation. We learned a lot from it. And we are going to start with the next round, or with the last session, actually, in this concurrent set of presentations. Thanks again to Moisés and Ivan.
Yes, thank you very much.
Can we already start with the, yes, I think we're just
sure, it's 11, right?
And we have José, you are here?
Yes, he is here.
Yeah, okay, great, wonderful. So I'll briefly introduce myself. My name is Catarina Glass, and together with Natalia Roldan, we are chairing this set of concurrent presentations. We now have our last presentation, which is also a synchronous workshop, okay? And just to remind you, during the session, please, can you keep your microphones muted and your cameras off, just to make sure that the transmission is going smoothly. Of course, there will be time for questions. There might be some interactive parts in this synchronous workshop too. So in those moments, please put on your cameras, unmute yourselves if you need to add something, answer any questions. So we are ready to welcome Professor José García Cortés from Instituto Chileno-Norteamericano here in Chile. And he is going to share with us a synchronous workshop entitled Fun, Engaging and Meaningful Listening Activities and Resources for Online Classes. So we're going practical now. And just to remind José again that we have, this time slot of 20 minutes usually, and time for questions, depending a bit on how you planned the workshop too, okay?
Okay.
Thank you. Over to you. Do you have anything to share? You should be able to share your...
Yes, I can share. Don't worry. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Over to you.
Okay, thank you. Well, first of all, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to all the people behind the Second International Conference on L2 Listening for giving us this space to share ideas. Well, as it was previously mentioned, my name is Jose, and today I prepared a little workshop. I don't know if you can see my screen. Now I'm screen sharing here.
Yes, we can.
Okay, thank you. About fun, engaging, and meaningful listening activities and resources for online classes. Well, we all know that we are living a pandemic nowadays, and with the COVID virus, our lives have changed in many different aspects, right? From the way we grocery shop, how we interact with other people, and also how we have classes in general. So online classes are like the new standard nowadays. And with all these changes, of course, we now have new challenges to overcome. And sometimes it can be a little difficult for us teachers to find a way to get our students motivated during listening activities, all participating together, and of course, engaged. And that is why we are going to focus on this today. Here we have our table of contents. First of all, I'm going to talk about lyrics training, which is it's a well-known website in which we can practice some listening skills in terms of word recognition. Then I'm going to talk about Slides, which is another resource we can use. It's basically a presentation tool. Then I'm going to teach you a sample activity in which we are going to use lyrics training along with Slides to create a fun, engaging, and meaningful activity. And by the end of the workshop, of course, before the questions, I'm going to show you some considerations that you should have in mind in order to adapt these resources and activities into your own classrooms, okay? Well, first of all, lyrics training is a website, and also it has an app compatible with Android and iOS, in which you can watch videos, movie trailers, and many other different types of videos. It is well known, but for the ones who don't know this website, basically you are able to watch a video and down below it you have the subtitles with some words missing, okay? And you or your students can type in the missing words. I have a video here, which is like 30 seconds long, that it's pretty self-explanatory. I'm going to share my sound. Please let me know if you can listen to it, please.
When your legs don't work like they used to before.
Can you?
Yes, we can listen.
Okay, thank you.
When your legs don't work like they used to before.
As you can see here, you can type in the words. Right here, like before.
Work like they used to before. And I can't sweep you off of your feet. Can't sweep you off of your feet. Will your mouth still remember the taste of my love? Will your eyes still smile from your cheeks?
Okay, so that is basically how it works, okay? To use this resource, you just need to access this website, okay? You need to create an account, choose a video, and right below this video, you can click on an icon that says New Exercise. There you can choose the missing words that you want your students to type in, and then of course you have to share this link with your students. Lyrics training has very many good aspects, for example, the visuals, okay? And also it is fun for the students to interact with it, but it does have some drawbacks. For example, it can be a little difficult to get all your students participating at the same time because it's of course only one screen here. And that is why we have Slides. I think I have something here. Okay, good comment. Yes, it is very interesting for little kids to watch and use the lyrics training. So that is why we are going to also be using Slides. Slides is an interactive presentation software in which you can present content, quizzes, and also questions. Basically, it's the same thing as Mentimeter, if you have heard about it, but the free version has more features. So I really recommend this. Basically, we are going to be using this in two ways. The first one, we can use it to make our students vote and decide maybe the contents that we are going to cover during the session in an interesting and fun way. And also when we have our students or when we give our students the opportunity to elaborate and choose what we are going to do, it's a good way to have our students more engaged and also have more meaningful activities for them. And also, we can use Slides to have all our students participating at the same time with along with lyrics training. So Now we are going to be using these two with a sample activity. Basically, Relay Training is going to provide us with the video and also the subtitles. And AHE Slides is going to give the opportunity to our students to be all participating together, competing as well, and to be able to choose the type of video we want to watch. So to start this, if you happen to have a mobile phone, cell phone, or whatever type of hardware to scan this QR code, if you don't, I'm going to be sending the link now through the chat. Okay, basically there, if you open the link or if you access the QR code, you are going to be able to vote between these three options we have, right? I see that most of you like Avengers Inside Out as well. Okay, we have like a competition here. Lion King. Of course, I would suggest you to choose videos according to the age of your students, of course, and their personal preferences. Okay, I see that probably Avengers won. In this way, we can give the opportunity to vote and decide what we are going to watch, and it's going to be more meaningful for them to participate, right? Okay, let's go back here then. So you chose Avengers. As well, here you have the QR code and also the link. If you don't have a mobile phone that can scan this, I'm going to be sending the link now. Just give me a second. Okay, you can access it now. Now you should be able to see my whole screen. Can you?
Yes.
Actually, we can.
Okay, so there, if you access the link, you should be able to choose your avatar and also your name. We have Val, Hugo, Paula, Manuel, Pris. We have Kay, Karen. Okay, while you join in, please have in mind that normally what I would do is I would manipulate AHE Slides through my phone, with my phone. But for the sake of the workshop, I have both screens open here. So what I would normally do is just have this, the lyrics training open, and the AHE Slides on my phone. I think I have a message here. Okay, Valeria, don't worry. Okay, I think we are ready to go. So what are we going to do now? As we watch the video, of course, you will have to answer or choose the correct word that is missing. AHE Slides is going to provide you with the options. You have to choose the correct one. I think I'm sharing my sound now. Yes, I am. Okay, are we ready? Ready or not, here we go.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago. I fought my way out of that cave.
Okay, now you have 4 options. You have to choose, of course, the correct one. The faster you answer, the more points you get. So have that in mind. Good.
God, seems like 1,000 years ago, I fought my way out of that cave, became Iron Man. Realized I loved you. I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last.
Okay, choose the correct answer. Good. You're good students.
I know I said no more surprises, but I was really hoping to pull off one last one.
The world has changed.
3, 2, 1. So far, so good.
The world has changed. None of us can go back. All we can do is our best. And sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
4, 3, 2, 1. There you have the alternatives. Also, you only have 12 seconds to answer, but of course you can change that as you please.
Sometimes the best that we can do is to start over.
I saw all these people die. I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do.
Okay, good. Continue playing, everybody.
I keep telling everybody they should move on. Some do, but not us.
Even if there's a small chance, we owe this to everyone who's not in this room to try.
4, 3, 2, 1, go. Three, two, one. Good.
To everyone who's not in this room to try.
Almost done.
We will. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it. Three, two, one, go. Perfect. Good. Good job.
Whatever it takes. Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes.
Whatever it takes. I like this one.
Okay, this is the last one. 3, 2, 1, go. Good.
I like this one.
Okay, now we get to see who won this competition. Let's see. So Val, first place, Paola Priest, congratulations. You're good students, even though you had the sleeping emoji. Good job. Okay, let's go back to the presentation. Okay, so some considerations that you should have in order to adapt this into your own classrooms, of course, is the language proficiency of your students, the vocabulary, the idiomatic expressions that are going to be in the video, the structures, and among other things, of course. Also, if you want to link the contents that you are covering during your sessions, you can consider them as well, right? You have to consider what you're currently teaching and what you want to consolidate if you are using it by the end of a session, for example. Later, of course, you have to choose the missing words and the alternatives wisely. I would suggest to use some alternatives with the same amount of letters, but also if you want to make sure that your students are identifying the missing words just by listening, you can modify slides and by taking the alternatives away, and you can make your students type in the word, okay? And of course, it's always good to remember students that in some cases, they can use other strategies than just recognize the sounds and words when listening, such as to figure the meaning out through context and the word order. Because of course, we have reading comprehension, we have oral production, we have listening comprehension, and we have reading comprehension. And sometimes, for example, if a student has studied a lot of grammatical rules or grammar rules while reading, they can also use that to their advantage, right? Because of the word order and all that. And I think we are just in time. Yes, I think so. Sorry if it was a little too fast, but I really wanted to cover everything in time, and I think I did. That was my presentation. Thank you for your attention. Thank you for your participation. I hope you have enjoyed the video and you have enjoyed the slides along with lyrics training. And I would suggest you to use it. It's a good way, and especially for online classes. Thank you.
Thanks, Jose. Very, very practical, very useful presentation for us to currently engaged with online teaching. Great. Thanks so much. And also, I think beyond that, because it will continue being useful for students to engage with these tools in their own time and outside the classroom even. Thank you so much. Do we have any questions from this group? Please, if you have a question, unmute yourselves. And if you can, put on the camera.
Yes, we have a question from Manuel.
Yes, I wanted to ask something. The slides, do they move on their own, or do you have to manually move the question?
Yes, you can time it. Okay, you can program that. You can set an amount of time, or you can manipulate it with this. Now, what I would normally do, as I mentioned before, I would manipulate slides through this, because having two screens, it can be like too much for the students, right? But for the sake of the workshop, I wanted you to see the interaction and the answers, but you can set a timer.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question? Sorry. I look like a ghost. I don't usually look like a ghost. It's the light. So I wanted to ask, because this activity is very interesting, and I like the way you exploited these different programs. Although I'm not sure the students that I have would be able to use the internet, but then there are probably other ways of doing this. I was wondering, because I've also used the lyrics training in the past with songs, it seems to me that it's a bit different with videos. I wasn't very concentrated on the meaning of the video. So eventually what I was very concentrated on was to be competitive and answer quickly, but I didn't understand what I was doing. So I have no idea what it says in spite of watching the Avengers. So do you have any solution for this? Would you watch it like twice? I don't know. What would you do?
Okay, well, what I would do in that case, of course, I would link it with what I'm teaching. So before starting the activity, I would like have a conversation with the students and to go a little deeper into the purpose of the activity, because these are resources. So you can manipulate the way, I mean, to suit your purpose, right? Here we were just figuring how to use it and all that. So for example, if you are teaching, I don't know, how to talk about habits, present habits, of course, you can choose a song or maybe a video that covers that, and you can like explain that to your students. Okay, please focus on this and that, and in that way, they are going to, of course, concentrate more in those aspects rather than just competing. Now, if you want to avoid the competition, which sometimes is good, especially, well, even people like us like to compete. You said it yourself, right?
Yeah.
You can omit the points. You can adapt that.
Sure. Okay, thanks.
Thank you for your question.
Very funny. It was nice. A nice way to wake up again.
Good performance.
Thanks.
Good question. Thank you. Do we have any questions on the Facebook Live, Manuel?
No, I was checking, but there are no questions on the live.
Okay. Any other comments? Maybe somebody who's also used these tools and can share an experience, maybe, or another question?
No, wait, I'm sorry. There is a question.
Oh, right. Yeah, Manuel, can you share that, please?
Yes, Paula Rodriguez asks, why do you choose AHA Slides? Isn't lyrics training compatible with other apps?
I mean, it's not a, you also have Mentimeter, but the problem with that, it's another presentation tool. The problem with it is that the free version, it only allows like 5 questions, I think. And AHA Slides, you can add as many questions as you want. Now, I'm pretty sure there should be more ways to do it, but so far, AHA Slides is the best one that I have found so far.
Good, great. Thank you so much, Jose. We have basically finished now the first, this round of concurrent sessions, and we are getting ready for the coffee break. So I would like to remind you about the YouTube videos that we are sharing that can give you some insights about classroom-based listening research. Okay, we do have some videos, for example, from Colombia, another one from Turkey, and one actually from our university, Peru here in Chile. So the idea is that you enjoy your coffee before we get back together to the keynote presentation at 12, okay? Watch the videos. Natalia has just pasted the video links into the chat. And basically with that, we can close this round of presentations. I would like to thank all the presenters again for the very interesting presentations, and hope to stay in touch with feedback. Natalia.
Just one quick thing. I will thank you, Jose, again for your presentation. It was very interesting. I really loved it. Just a reminder for the presenter and also the attendees that we have a keynote speaker on listening assessment that is a quite neglected area in listening research. And it's going to be from 12 to 1. So we invite you all to be there with us listening to this keynote speaker, okay? Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. See you at 12.
At 12.
Yes.
Bye-bye.
Goodbye, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you.
Let's wait for. Thank you, Professor. Thank you, Manuel.
Yeah.